going on, everybody? Hello again and welcome back to another episode of the Welch Report with me, Jean-Luc Welch. Make some noise, clap it up, get excited wherever you are. We are back with another action-packed episode for you today, covering the world of the NBA and boxing as we always do on this show, on this channel. And again, please go ahead and leave a like on the video, comment your thoughts and opinions, subscribe to the channel, and share the show with everybody that you know. We got so much to talk about, like Zhang knocking out Deontay Wilder, Daniel Dubois KOing, or rather TKOing Hrgovic. What does it mean for him and his resurgence? Bivol versus Zinad in a fight that many people thought was going to be a whitewash, ended in KO, but highly more competitive. What does this mean for him and Bivol versus After Beterbiev happening later on this year? Has it changed my opinion who's going to win that fight, as well as the NBA Finals are vastly approaching? This week, a champion will be crowned between the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. Luka versus Jayson Tatum. Kyrie versus the hated Boston Celtics franchise and organization, at least in some people's eyes. And we're not picking favorites or anything. They do be racist, by the way, but still, that's neither here nor there. It's just going to be a battle of hoops. Who's going to win? Why do I think whoever team's going to win, it will win, as well as the storylines for each respective teams and their stars. Oh, we got so much to cover on this show. So again, thank you so much for tuning in and listening and supporting the channel. Keep on sharing, keep on liking. We're available on every podcasting platform also. But again, all that promotional stuff aside, go on and like the video one more time. And without further ado, let's jump right into the content. Let's jump right into the action. And since we're talking about boxing first and foremost, it is time to step into the ring. That's right. Ring the bell. Let's get it started right here, right now. Round one of this boxing segment of the show, talking about the biggest fight, or rather the most notable fight on the card, Zhang versus Deontay Wilder, in a fight that, I called it wrong. I knew it. I had a feeling. I said it. You can go watch the short, and you can go watch the entire breakdown on the channel. I said, against my better judgment, I feel like it's the wrong decision. I was picking Wilder to KO Zhang only because Zhang did not move his head as a boxer. He's a guy who blocks and catches everything. And against Deontay Wilder, that is a dangerous type of option to be defensive. And it is a tailor-made option for Wilder to actually have success and bounce back. Because not going up against a mover, but going up against somebody who is slower in terms of foot movement and doesn't move his head to get out the way of the punch as much as somebody like a Joseph Parker, primed and ready to actually get a knockout win and get back on track. However, I was dead wrong, and Zhang lived up to his name. Big Bang Zhang banged the mess out of Deontay Wilder, knocked that brother out in 5 rounds, and literally spun him around and then put him to sleep. Wilder still got up, but that brother wasn't able to continue, and rightfully so. The fight got stopped, and this looks like the end of Deontay Wilder. As much as people don't want to hear it, as much as people don't want to speculate and say, oh yeah, that's true. I said, this is it. I said, this is it. Breaking down the fight, I said this was going to be Wilder's last shot, not only at the title, but to stay in boxing. Because if he lost this fight, he's done in terms of the elite division of heavyweights. This is his last opportunity, he said himself, to make or break and prove to himself and his pundits that he was still a man to be reckoned with. And he still got the power. He still got the athleticism. He is still Deontay Wilder. But at the same time, he's not. And it showed true in this fight. This is not the same Deontay Wilder that we knew, that we loved, that we fell in love with as boxing fans, just as a star. This isn't the same guy. As we break down this fight, it was clear to see that this was a situation where Wilder got outmatched and outclassed. Zhang was the man who was landing the cleaner punches. He was landing the more damaging punches. Wilder still looked as though he doesn't have any footwork, doesn't have any good mobility on the feet, moving around the ring. This man still has all the same problems and did not fix anything about his style, didn't fix a thing about his ability. His talent is still where his talent was, as we have seen it in the last fight against Joseph Parker, degressing and regressing. The only good thing about this fight was we saw Wilder at least be more adamant in throwing that right hand and throwing the great eraser, Teddy Atlas likes to call it, in throwing the big damaging right hand straight that has put out so many other opponents. That was the only thing that was really great about this fight. His jab was still rudimentary and wasn't effective at all, especially with, again, give credit to Zhang. Like I said that blocking everything and not moving his head would be a detriment to Zhang, when in fact it was actually a perfect game plan against Wilder, because of the fact that, one, him being big and him not moving his head allowed for him just to be able to move forward and stalk and walk and use that pressure and power to be a always imposing threat, on Deontay Wilder, forcing him into the corner, forcing him to feel uncomfortable, and using his lead right hand, because again, he is a southpaw, using his lead right hand to paw and make Wilder's jab ineffective, not allowing him to utilize that range finder correctly, because you can never fully extend it. Something is always in the way, and he can always catch it. And when he wants to get out the way of that right hand that's coming in, instead of ducking in like we saw somebody like Luis Ortiz do when he got knocked out by Wilder twice, even though he was winning the fight, instead, we saw Zhang duck outside and use that right hook as a means to counter while slipping. So he did use head movement, ironically enough. And it was the head movement in order to lead to an offensive exchange. And he did that 2 times in this fight. Both of them damaged him. And the last time he did it, it spun around. And like I said in the prediction of this fight, I said, do not be surprised if we saw Zhang go in time and trade and beat Wilder to the punch with the right hand, beat Wilder's right hand to the punch with his own shot, due to his deceptive hand speed and his ability to land before his opponent can actively connect. That is what Zhang did to a T, and it ended the brother. Outclassed, outmatched, outworked, and outright overcame and destroyed the bronze bomber. And Deontay Wilder still looks like a bronze statue. And in round 5, that bronze statue got taken down. It got destroyed and demolished, put on the mat, in what could be potentially his last time in the ring as a boxer. And this is the biggest problem. It's the biggest problem with Wilder. It wasn't that he was facing somebody who was, again, 40 pounds heavier than him. Because Zhang came into the fight, what was it, 182, 192, something like that? Wilder came into the fight, 214. Wasn't the size that was the problem. It wasn't the, oh my gosh, you're facing somebody too big for you to actually be able to hurt. No. It's the fact that this all started when he got into boxing. His fundamentals never got taught to the breadth of what they needed to be early on. And because of that, it led to what we see today. It really did. Deontay Wilder is a bronze medalist. Again, bronze bomber, because he got to the Olympics after starting boxing late in his career. Then went on to boxing. And yes, he didn't fight a bunch of major names up until later on in his career. Again, when Luis Ortiz really got going. And when Luis Ortiz, he gave him a shot. From Luis Ortiz all the way to Zhang was when he really started fighting top tier quality opponents. Understandable. But still, there was no technique involved in what he was doing. The problem with Wilder was because of that lack of fundamental ability that he never garnered from that amateur and from that Olympic background. He never developed it to the point that it could actually be developed later on. He got so in tune with what was working that he never bothered to fix anything. And that is a problem. However, that also didn't mean that couldn't have still given and carried him to more success if he stayed with it. All of this is to simply say, Wilder was never a great technical boxer. No, he wasn't. We understand that. And we validate that is true. However, with Wilder not being a technical boxer, he was a great brawler. Throwing and going. Absolutely being reckless. Him being so untechnically sound allowed him to be the destructive force that he was. Again, I have said this in the past about boxers. You can beat perfection by being imperfect, because that imperfection leads to a uniqueness that you can only bring to the table as a fighter that can beat a bunch of people that should be better than you, that should be something that they're more refined, they're more sound in all facets. Still, your uniqueness, because you do stuff wrong, is what can make you so hard to beat, so hard to stop. Again, Emmanuel Augustus, a perfect example. Somebody who, again, he was a good technical boxer, understandable. He wasn't, as a talent, he was an enigma. He was a mystery. His talent looked so great, but his record didn't show it. And when he went against the elite of the elites, yes, he wasn't on that same level. Still, he was a good fighter. However, he broke and wasn't a great technical boxer. He wasn't. He broke a lot of rules. Did a lot of stuff that you shouldn't do. But because of that, it's what made him the hardest opponent in terms of Floyd Mayweather, the hardest opponent that Floyd Mayweather ever faced in his career. His words, his quoting the Money Team, quoting the Money Man, quoting Pretty Boy at that point in time before he changed over to Money Mayweather. This is what allowed him to be successful. Wilder, him being so wrong, allowed him to be so destructive because you didn't know where the punch was coming from. You knew the right hand was coming, and you knew he was going to throw it over and over and over again. Yet still, because of that volatility and the recklessness, it caused everybody to be scared of him. It did. It truly did. And that is what he kept going up until and kept using up until he faced Tyson Fury. After Tyson Fury, he then tried to change his style. And that's where stuff went wrong. That's where stuff went awry. He still gave Tyson Fury one of the hardest fights of his career during Tyson Fury's reign as champion. And we all knew he wasn't better technically. I knew that Tyson Fury was a better boxer, but still, the recklessness made him be able to push Tyson Fury to the limit. Knock him down multiple times. Knock him down to the point that we thought he was not getting up in that first fight. And looked like it was going to be the end in the second fight. Or in the third fight. When he knocked him down after being down and after being demolished like he was in the second fight. We saw Wilder still go and throw. Be reckless. And that kept him competitive. That is what allowed for him to be able to compete with the best of the best, to be able to still be one of the most feared boxers in the division, though his talent level was not up to par. That is what Wilder was. And he went and tried to refine too much. I said he needed to learn some technical ability. I said that he needed to be more than just a one-punch savant, more than just a rudimentary boxer, which he was and is. I completely said that. I said that he should have lost to Luis Ortiz. Both times he was getting beat. Luis Ortiz would have beaten the second time if he didn't make the fatal mistake of turning his back to the ropes and giving Wilder the center ring. But he was winning the fight. I have said that Wilder is a bad technical boxer. That did not mean that he still wasn't something that was so dangerous because of what he did. What he did wrong worked. Him trying to refine that at this stage in his career, when he was older, when he was still trying to compete for a title, and now you're trying to reinvent yourself and not taking the time to fight, again, bums with respect. Bums that can't do anything to you so you can practice and implement those types of tactics more often. Now, that could have been your bread and butter, but you didn't. You instead went right back into the fray. To a degree, maybe it was coaching that messed you up. Maybe Malik Scott wasn't the best coach for you. Maybe firing Mark Breland was the worst decision you could have made. Blaming him for a loss that you just got beat outright. And he was saving you from being injured and from potentially not being able to fight ever again beyond that point. If he didn't do that, you might not be able to have a third trilogy fight. But the point still stands. Whatever reasoning you want to say as to why Wilder turned into what we see him as now, the biggest thing that we can all say is that he went too far in trying to become something that he's not. He should have stayed true to what he was. A brawler, a puncher, a man who does not have great technique, yet still has the ability to injure because he is willing to be reckless and forego what he can't do in favor of consistently trying what he can't. I'm not saying it would have been the same. I'm not saying it would not have been the same outcome. I'm not saying Zhang wouldn't have still knocked him out. I'm not saying that wouldn't have changed. What I'm saying is the performance and the type of fighter that we see Wilder as now, it's not the same fighter that we saw going out and dying on a shield, as he likes to say. The heart's still there. But now what that heart is beating inside of is a different person. It's a different boxer now. And this is no longer a fighter that can do it anymore. He has said that if he lost this fight, this might be the end. This very well may be the end. This very well could be the end of Deontay Wilder. In my opinion, it should be. Because at this point in time, not only have you done everything that you can do in sport, not only did you break Muhammad Ali's record for the most title defenses, I believe, of the WBC title, and are still going to be seen as one of the most volatile boxers that the sport has ever seen. I still stand by it's the greatest right hand that I've seen in boxing history. That your legacy in the sport has been cemented. It is a destructive force of nature that ran through and was feared by everybody in the division. That will never change. You've got the money. You can take care of your daughter. You can take care of your family. You can do everything you want to do outside of the sport, no longer having to risk yourself inside the ring. And at this point in time, that is the best course of action, because right now you can no longer do it. You can't compete at the highest level. You can't compete at the elite level anymore because you are not the same fighter. Your mentality isn't the same. You've changed to the point that you're unrecognizable. It's just the truth. I'll even give credit where credit is due. He was hurting Zhang in round 5 before Wilder got knocked out. He actively reverted back to the Wilder of old. He started throwing and spamming the right hand. He came forward. He stopped backing up and allowing his opponent to pressure him. He stopped allowing Zhang to constantly push him to the ropes. And instead, he threw and then kept on throwing. Caught him 2 times and would push Zhang to the ropes. Caught him legitimately. Hurt him. Or at least got his attention. It was a callback to the Wilder of old. It was a semblance of the vestiges, the vapors of what Wilder used to be. The reckless, offensively minded, pushing you back, front-footed Wilder. That is what he did best. And even Zhang, who's a world-class fighter, who is one of my favorite fighters in the heavyweight division, even he, with how good he is, he's still in that quiet, not even that quiet, in that quick flurry, was taken aback and got on the defensive. Yes, he did. He was in a situation where, oh man, hold on now. I need to regroup. Because now this brother's coming and I can't stop this onslaught. For this brief moment, we saw the Wilder roll. Then we didn't see it again. It was the last time that we saw Wilder in that brief instance as the Wilder that was the bronze belt. Because all this time, ever since that last Fury fight, he went away from it. Went away from that. Went away from what made Wilder Wilder. And he can't get back to it. Not at this stage. So he shouldn't, in my opinion, I think he's done. This is not to say, oh, I'm glad he's gone. No, I'm not. But this is a career that overachieved to the fullest capacity. This is a career that expanded and literally jumped the shark in terms of what he should be capable of, with him being so rudimentary as a boxer. Him being a bronze medalist even shouldn't have been something that was possible. But he did it. Starting boxing late and to achieve what he's done. He will be a bona fide Hall of Famer. He will be seen, again, as one of the most feared boxers in history. That will not change. That will not change in the slightest. But he can't do it anymore. He can't. He's no longer the same fighter. He can't get back to the same fighter. He can't. It's more than just the damage of the fights of Fury. It's more than just he wasn't a technical boxer. It's more than all of it. He didn't need technique to become one of the best in the world at the heavyweight division when he was champion. He didn't need technique when he became a 10-time defending champion. But he needed to be wilder. Wild style. The Bronze Bomber. That is what made him what he was. When he went at some point in time, during that Fury trilogy, he left. After that third fight, never saw Wilder as Wilder again. Robert Elanius went on the back foot. Joseph Parker on the back foot now. Zhang on the back foot. Completely changed everything about him. He could not get to where he was the consistent dog, the consistent bomber, constantly throwing missiles. Whatever part of that of him that made him be able to fight like he fought wasn't there. And it's time for him to go with respect. We love and appreciate Wilder, but this, you can't do it because you're no longer the same guy. Even if you want to wear your heart on your shield. Even if you want to wear your heart on your sleeve, excuse me. No, literally on your shield. You still went out like a warrior. You still got up before the count of 9 before the ref said that you weren't fit to compete. You still were able to end on your feet. But it wasn't because it was the vestige. Internally, you'll never stay down. But as a fighter, on the whole, your heart's still there, but now everything else isn't. Perfect example, before we switch gears, the perfect analogy for Wilder, what we see now, is the Greek mythology story. Essentially a question. A boat with the same stern, but in terms of essentially the bottom of the boat, the core of the boat stays on the boat. The rest of the boat gets replaced. Is it the same boat? Some would say yes because one of the core pieces is still there. Some would say no because now everything else about the boat except for this one piece is now no longer existing. Completely different. And I fall in the line that it's a completely different ship. Because just because one core piece is there, the heart is still there. The entire makeup of the ship is completely different. No longer can you say it has the same outer body. It has the same flag, the same stern, same buoyancy, same anything. It's not the same. The originality that made this ship, the ship, now no longer is there. Though a piece of it still remains. The vestiges of past do not equate to what the modern day equivalent is. Because this is just a piece of the same ship that used to remain. But everything else around the ship is all new. No matter how closely you can see that it looks like the exact same thing. Even if it's made from the same material, it's not the same. Wilder is not the same. The core of him is still there. The heart is still there. Everything else is no longer the same. It's not. Because of that, it's time for him to go. It's time for him to wrap it up. Not because we want to see him gone, but because we don't want to see him damaged. Go out on your shield. And you did just that. Now, you have nothing else to prove. We know what would have happened if you faced AJ now. You would have gotten beat. If you faced Wilder, if Wilder faced AJ after even if he beat Joseph Parker, if Wilder faced AJ, he would have gotten beat. Because that Wilder still, it wasn't the same Wilder. If we saw Wilder fight AJ in the past, Wilder would have still picked AJ to beat him. We're having a completely different conversation. Because that Wilder, even with as rudimentary as it was, it still is. It was different. He fought different. He moved different. His willingness to attack was different. The core of him and the rest of that mold of him was still the original him. And that version of Wilder, fearless and unrelenting. Now this Wilder, he still will get up for anything and still believes in that power of the right hand. But how he executes and everything else completely changed because he changed everything about him. After that third Fury fight, he changed everything about himself that made him what he was. Now we have to say, I think that he's done. I think he should retire. I think he should go off into the sunset and end his career with the legacy still intact, faculty still intact, but leave the sport behind because now you don't have what you used to have, which is you still have the core of yourself, but the rest of the ship no longer the same. And you can't replicate what you were after you've changed what you are. You can't. You can't. It's the sad reality. You can't change it. Since you can't change that, now the new you isn't working. You gotta call it done. Got to call it done. And I think he should go and retire. Just my respectful opinion. But even still, we still got more to talk about in the world of boxing, as we had Daniel Dubois KOing, or rather TKOing, Filip Hrgovic in a fight that was incredibly exciting. Hrgovic was landing on Daniel Dubois all night long, legitimately, consistently landing that right hand. Dubois could not get out the way. It looked like another iteration of what we saw Dubois do against Joe Joyce when he couldn't get out of Joe Joyce's jab, and he ended up having to stop the fight due to his eye getting swollen and nearly getting blinded. Completely understandable why he didn't continue, but he wasn't getting out the way of the shots. This fight, same situation. Right hand was constantly connecting. Early on, it looked like Hrgovic was going to cruise to an easy victory, even potentially a knockout. But then we saw Dubois continually have the pressure and the volume and the outright offensive output to overwhelm Hrgovic. And it was a answer to a call that we have been calling for Dubois for multiple times. Where is your heart? We saw it against Big Baby Jarrell Miller. We saw it. Yes, we did. However, we understood that the talent level of Jarrell Miller wasn't up to the standard of the elite championship contenders, though he was a big, tough guy, even off of the drugs that he took. But still, that fight, a coming out party. This fight was a cementing of the new Daniel Dubois. This is the Daniel Dubois who is able to fight through adversity. This is not the Daniel Dubois who, against Usyk, did not continue when it looked like he could continue. It's not the Daniel Dubois that everybody says quit against Joe Joyce. Though, again, he did not quit. It was the fact that his eye was to the point that it was too dangerous to continue. You can't tell me, you can't look at that and tell me, oh yeah, I want to go on. No, it was understandable that he'd stop. But still, that begged questions of, does he have the heart of a champion? Or is he going to, if you overwhelm him, is he going to just stop and end himself? In terms of stop and quit the fight on his own terms. Against Usyk, that definitely proved like it was true. Because though Usyk caught him and hurt him with a great counter shot off to the side when Dubois couldn't see him. Still, we saw Daniel Dubois in a championship situation not get up when this was his shot at glory. His shot against the best of the best, he did not get up. And we were now still questioning whether his heart was there. With all the power, all the athleticism. Now we go see him against, again, Jarrell Miller does his job, gets it done through adversity in a great fight. Now against Hrgovic in a better opponent, taller opponent, an opponent that was more accurate and was landing hard shots on you. Ate them like they were nothing as terms of Daniel Dubois. Moved with the intent to kill and had an eye for an end goal of I'm not going to back down. This is Daniel Dubois that we want to see fight people like an Anthony Joshua. This is an evolving Daniel Dubois. It still, technically still can be better. But the willingness to just keep on coming forward and understand to lean into your strengths is literally, which is your strength. It's great. This is exactly what we want to see. This is a concrete, definitive point of view that we can now hold on Daniel Dubois. He is a new man. He is a new fighter. He is a new driven boxer. He's got that fire lit under him now. He will not let adversity stop him. He will not let trials impede what his ultimate goal is, which is to stop you, which is to use his strength to overwhelm and outwork and outmatch you, like he did against Philip Hrgovic. Unlike with Zhang, when Zhang had Hrgovic in trouble and he was just too gassed to do anything. Dubois came on strong, came in strong, and was able to, when Hrgovic got tired, continue the onslaught to make Hrgovic get damaged. Cut him, open him up, continue to attack. It would have probably ended in KO outright if the fight kept on going. But this is great on the side of Hrgovic, on the side of Daniel Dubois. Because Hrgovic was a brother who was able to take on Zhang and keep on going, even though both of them were winded and tired. Even though Zhang should have won that fight, in my estimation. Still, to go 12 rounds with Zhang and then force a stoppage on the same brother into the Hrgovic who went with Zhang, that's a testament to this is a new man. And we love to see it. We can't wait to see what he brings to the table as more time goes on. Now he's got a shot against AJ. And I believe reportedly he is in talks already with AJ to have a fight at Wembley Stadium. And the winner of that fight most likely gets a shot at the undisputed title, which is going to be a great fight. And the AJ sweepstakes, again, another point to bring up, the AJ sweepstakes of who will face him now is between Zhang and Daniel Dubois. And like I just said, Zhang right now looks like he's out the running and Daniel Dubois would be in the running. However, if we did in fact see that Zhang did face AJ, that would be the biggest telltale test of whether or not AJ is truly ready to go back into the fray with somebody like Usyk. It is. Because of the fact that Zhang would be the better test. Even though Daniel Dubois would be the moneymaker, especially over in Britain. An all British heavyweight, at this point, mega fight, we'd have to call it, for the British community and the UK community, due to the resurgence of AJ and the now solidified resurgence of Daniel Dubois. It both would be a great fight to see, but the test, true test, would be going up against Anthony Joshua and Zhang if that fight was to happen. But just in my estimation, I would rather see Zhang versus AJ rather than AJ versus Daniel Dubois due to the talent level being higher. However, Daniel Dubois is looking like he's going to be in the line to fight AJ. And AJ is going to knock him out in my estimation. AJ will beat him. AJ will KO that brother. Because if we see Hrgovic continue to land shots in the heart and grit of Daniel Dubois is what was pushing him forward, which we love to see. Can't wait. I'm glad that we're seeing. Against AJ, you land the consistency of right hands that got landed on you by Hrgovic, that you change that opponent to AJ, Daniel Dubois is getting out in 3 rounds. He is. He's not withstanding that. No, he's not. He's not withstanding that at all. Absolutely not. It's going to end right then and there. Because Dubois still technically is not the best. He's not. Defensively, he's lacking. Offensively, he's incredibly strong, incredibly relentless, as we got to see. Is somebody who can push you around and push you to where he wants you to be because of his strength. But against AJ, that's not going to happen. None of that's going to happen. This version of AJ ends Dubois in 3 rounds. This version against Zhang, that would be a better fight, in my estimation. I don't know who would win that fight between Zhang and AJ. If it lasted longer than 6, AJ. Within 5, now we're talking Zhang could do some real damage. Especially against the iffy chin of Anthony Joshua. Which, however you want to view AJ now, that is still a point of weakness. If he gets hit clean, it can damage him. That is just a fact now. But he's not letting that stop him because his mentality now is completely different. The way he fights mirrors that, which is why that fight would be so interesting. And I would love to see that fight more than I would love to see Dubois versus Zhang. But again, we still got more to cover on this show, like with Bivol versus Zanad. And again, this fight with Bivol versus Zanad. Zanad was a fighter who was implemented as a replacement for Artur Beterbiev, who injured his meniscus, is out until the end of the year. Right now, we saw Bivol KO Zanad, and now that fight between Artur Beterbiev and Bivol is going to be happening later on. And yeah, Turkish Al-Sheikh gave a specific date. I cannot remember, but even still, it's going to happen. Now with the performance that we saw Bivol do against Zanad, does it bring some questions as to what he can do against Beterbiev? He got his first knockout in years, understandable, which is great. Couldn't finish Lyndon Arthur when he was even more dominant in that fight than he was in this fight with Zanad. But the problem is, even with him getting the KO, that doesn't do me any good in terms of, does that better his chances? Oh, he's aggressive. Yes, he is. He's looking for the KO. Yes, he is. Great. Landed a knockdown early. Ended up getting a knockout later on in the fight. Love to see it. But against somebody like Beterbiev, it's going to be a very tough task when we saw Zanad be able to actually have some success against you. And Zanad is a good fighter. I'm not saying he isn't a good fighter. No. Under the radar, many people didn't know of him. Some people were saying he was great. He showed his fight to prove if it was or wasn't true. Turned out it's true. And offensively, we were seeing Zanad give Bivol some actual trouble. Surprisingly to everybody's eyes. Making it a competitive fight, though Bivol was winning. And against somebody like Zanad, we were seeing Bivol get hit. That jab was getting through. The volume and the consistency of offense was getting through to Bivol. It was. Though Bivol was able to outthink and use his genius to be able to overcome and eventually end the fight. Yes. But what I saw in this fight showed me that if he fights Artur Beterbiev, it's going to be a tale of what Beterbiev is going to be in the fight. We understand the power is going to be there regardless. But now with this meniscus injury, if we see that this Beterbiev is not the same Beterbiev of old, and his mobility is even more compromised, and his mobility is compromised due to the knee injury, and he can't cut off the ring, Bivol's going to win, in my estimation. Because then the volume and the movement is going to be something that gives him too much trouble. However, if it's the Beterbiev of old, and was the Beterbiev that we see that he is still the same Artur Beterbiev pre-knee injury, or it hasn't affected him, I got Beterbiev winning this fight. I got Beterbiev knocking out Bivol. Because we saw Zanad be able to stand in front of Bivol. Even though Bivol, again, is a mover, is a artist as a boxer. We saw Zanad literally stand directly in front of him. Not move back. And instead force Bivol to have to be the guy to essentially create whatever distance that he wanted to. Instead of just giving him that distance. And standing his ground. And having success in standing his ground. If we see Beterbiev be the Beterbiev of old, with what we saw Zanad be able to do, just be able to stand in front of people. Now, we know Beterbiev has the chin to be able to take the shots of Bivol. We know this. That knockout on Zanad didn't impress me to where, oh yeah, now Bivol's got power that can affect Beterbiev. The whole point of this fight is if Zanad can stand in front of you, even though he got knocked out, but last for 6 rounds and be able to keep on going, standing in front of you when with your offensive output and your offensive incredible genius, you could do whatever you want with him once you turned it on and flipped that switch. Beterbiev is going to be able to stand in front of you, cut off the ring, and be able to take whatever you give to him. And if we saw Zanad able to have success with that jab of his own, that ramrod jab of Beterbiev was going to be so much more damage. The offense that Beterbiev was going to be able to land on Bivol and be able to take in kind if Bivol throws back. I don't see it. I don't see Bivol being able to beat Artur Beterbiev. I think Beterbiev not just is too big and too strong, but his willingness to trade and his ability to be able to trade is going to be the thing that wins this fight. Again, I've called it simplistic destruction, not because his fighting style is simple. We know there is a nuanced genius in Beterbiev in his ability to cut off and seek and destroy. We know this. But when I say simplistic destruction versus complex ingenuity and complex genius in terms of Beterbiev, again, I've talked about this in another video. It is the situation where we see Beterbiev, it looked so simple in the ring. Because he doesn't do all the flash, the hand movement isn't all there in terms of, oh, it's exaggerated and it looks, oh my gosh. He doesn't fight like that. But we know how he does fight is a genius in and of itself. Because it looks like he's just walking and stalking and just boom, boom, boom. Everything looks almost robotic. But it is a Terminator-like destructive path that he always goes and runs in. And runs through any of his opponents. Because of the fact that he is able to do the simple stuff to get the fastest path to victory. And against somebody like Bivol, it's going to be not just stalk and walk, but I will trade with you. Take a shot to give a shot. And with how much trouble you had with Zanad offensively, again, respectfully, when you locked in and turned it on, okay, boom, you did what you did. Doesn't change the fact that Beterbiev was on a higher level of offensive output and damage that he can do to you. And if Zanad is able to stand in the pocket with you and win offensive exchanges on a more consistent basis than anybody thought was going to happen in this fight, then with Beterbiev, that's going to be, if it is the Beterbiev of old, pre-injury, that comes back and shows he's still the same Terminator. That is going to be Bivol's worst nightmare. And he's going to knock him out. We'll break down the fight more and more as it gets closer. And as we see what Beterbiev is, again, in training camp and with reports coming out of which Beterbiev we are going to see. But if it is the Beterbiev of old, and he is back to 100% or at least 90%, where it hasn't affected him greatly, I got Beterbiev knocking out Bivol. I really do. And I think it's going to be a situation where Beterbiev is going to walk to and walk through Bivol and be able to take down the undisputed title. If it is the same Beterbiev before the knee injury, as in if it stays that he is still at about the same level and isn't severely compromised. If he is, different story. But if he isn't, then the injury is going to hinder him not nearly as severely as I think it will, then Beterbiev, it's going to be a long night for Bivol. I guarantee it. Incredibly long night for Bivol. But again, we still got more to cover. Moving out of the world of boxing into the world of the NBA, as now we officially have our finals matchup of Mavs versus Celtics for the NBA title. That is right, Mavs coming back for the first time since 2011 when they beat the Miami Heat and LeBron James and that big three down in Miami, and the Boston Celtics, who are looking to get another crack at redemption after losing to the Golden State Warriors and Steph Curry in the finals a couple years ago. This is a matchup that has been highly anticipated because it is two of the best stars in the world, Tatum and Luka, going up against each other, and Kyrie as well, and Jaylen Brown, who not nearly as big of a star, but still two of the best duos in the NBA going up against each other. How is this going to go? Well, in my opinion, who I think is going to win, I got Boston winning this series on the logic of from top to bottom. They are better built than the Dallas Mavericks. They are. Dallas is a two-man team as well as Boston. But Boston, that supporting cast, is leagues better than what we're seeing from Dallas and what Luka and Kyrie have to work with. Why do I say that? You got Derek White. You got Jaylen Brown. You have June Holiday, a better version of Marcus Smart that you gave away in order to get some legitimate offense and still all-world defensive abilities, as well as Al Horford, who has consistently been a rock and a great down-low defensive anchor and three-point marksman for the Boston Celtics. You can just look at what happened the last time they went to the finals. Al Horford, Big Al, was being incredibly efficient and effective for the Boston Celtics squad. And then on top of that, you still have a great depth of talent with, again, you got Derek White who can lead the bench or be a part of the main unit, and the rest of that roster is built with and filled with people who can either play two-way and or be outright shooters and offensive weapons for the team to use. It is a team that is built to be able to withstand and go against just about anybody in the NBA. And while Luka and Kyrie are stellar, and they beat the best defensive team in basketball in the Timberwolves in that series, again, swept them. Well, excuse me, not swept them, but gentlemen swept them. Timberwolves got one game up, but still dominated them. They did. And that duo has been incredible. They lacked the offensive ability to the Timberwolves in the whole of their team. They just did. That was one of the pitfalls of why they couldn't compete and why Kyrie and Luka were able to outscore their offense by themselves. And only Ant and Cat being the real main engines to be able to put buckets on the board. Luka and Kyrie, yeah, you can beat them. You can beat that. You can. If you can just be relatively efficient on offense with everybody else. But you two have the ability to outdo that. But this Boston squad is completely different. It's not the same type of problem. You can have, again, Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who can both go for 30 and 40 points. We've seen Jaylen Brown go for, 44, 43 in the last series against the Patriots. Again, it's the end of the Patriots, understandable, but still, being able to go and produce and perform, and the rest of that offense and the rest of that team still can do the same. They do their job, and they do it well, similar to the Denver Nuggets. Everybody on that team is able to do their part and do their role and play phenomenally in their respective role. That is what this Boston Celtics squad is built off of. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. With Kristaps Porzingis coming back now, if he's able to be relatively healthy and isn't severely compromised, there's another offensive weapon. Now you have size, you have shooting, you have length, you have defense, and you have the ability to play on the inside or on the outside. You can. With Porzingis in the fray as well, adding him back into the finals, this is a whole new animal. It's going to be a completely different team, a better team. There's a reason why this team was able to be so good. They are built for anybody. They have the chemistry. They have the offensive ability. They have the shooting. They have the duo and the two-man engine that can run the offense and control the game. They have the anchors to be able to play down low against any type of lineup, who also aren't liabilities in their own right, like with Rudy Gobert, who was a liability for that Timberwolves squad. Yeah, he could play defensive on the floor, but also offensively, he was something that was messing them up. The plus minus in this case scenario lied on what Rudy Gobert was actually doing in terms of in that series. And for the majority of what this team is, the Timberwolves. Now with the Boston Celtics, that's not a problem. It's going to be a highly, highly, highly tall task for Luka and Kyrie to be able to overcome. Because I'm not relying on Tim Hardaway. Even with as good as Gafford was and as good as Derek Lively were, this is a different type of rebounding squad in terms of the Boston Celtics. From guards all the way up to centers, everybody can crash the board. Everybody can be a legitimate force or at least weapon when it comes to getting second chance opportunities or taking the defensive rebound to make sure that there is no second chance opportunities on their side. There's going to be some real opposition. There's going to be some real stuff exposed because they have championship experience, at least finals experience. They have been there before. They have been at the highest level. They have played together and have played for championships. A couple people have won championships. Maybe not on Boston, but they've won a championship like with June Holiday. You have everything you need on a roster to be able to be successful. Outside with Luka and Kyrie leading an incredibly young but talented squad. But still, Kyrie's the only brother on that team with championship experience. Everybody else has not been to this place before. You can at least say that they got championship experience and a couple of players have been there before, so you also know how to handle themselves. You can say that with Boston. June Holiday, Al Horford, Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, the majority of that starting five has been to a title. And June Holiday has won it. Kyrie Irving has won it and has been to a title. Everybody else ain't been there. Most of the people ain't been there. Luka ain't been there. Derek Lively showing up ain't been there. Gafford ain't been there. Tim Hardaway Jr. definitely has never been there. It is what it is. This is what they're facing. Experience and talent and depth over some experience, a lot of talent, but youth, and as well as never been under these moments before. This is going to be a different animal when it comes to Dallas when they play Boston. It's a well-oiled machine versus a road runner. Yeah, but by road runner, I mean a hot rod. Somebody that looks flashy and they can get out the gate hot. Can you sustain it against an experienced driver? That's what the question is going to be. Now, they can beat them. Don't get me wrong. Dallas can beat them. It's possible. It's just going to be a tall task. But there's going to be some extra oomph. Because like I've said before, the storylines in this game are incredibly exciting. Luka and Kyrie going up against Jaylen Brown, who is indeed the best duo in the NBA right now. That's going to be a legitimate thing that's going to be talked about. If we see Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum beat Luka and Kyrie, are we going to elevate them in how they are as a duo in the NBA currently, as well as potentially all time? These are questions that are going to be asked. Kyrie Irving and Kyrie Irving and Boston, that rivalry of a man versus a city, one versus all, one versus 50, standing 10 toes down. That's what we're going to see Kyrie Irving do. Going up against a city that feels like they betrayed him. Or feels like he betrayed them, Seeing the videos of him stepping on the floor when he was in Brooklyn, stepping on the leprechaun. Seemingly called a terrible leader, called somebody who couldn't be a great player on a championship squad anymore, couldn't lead a team to a championship, is only relegated to a Robin, but is a Robin that will kill the entire Batman family. A destructive force in implosion. That's what he was called. Especially in the city of Boston. They hated that brother after how he performed and what he did for that city in the in the playoffs when he was the main guy leading that squad and when he left and how he left. Oh, there's some animosity there. Same thing with Porzingis on the side of Dallas. Porzingis literally, I believe, has gone on record and said he essentially quit on that squad when they were making their playoff run. They let him go. There's some animosity between Dallas and him. Jayson Tatum versus Luka Doncic. This is a battle of, is Tatum a top 10 player? Or is he not? Going up against a arguably top 5 player in Luka. An MVP candidate. Better MVP candidate than you. By leaps and bounds in my estimation. We're looking at a situation, if Tatum can go and beat Luka, we're changing the conversation of how we view him. We're changing his ranking in the NBA. We're changing his cachet as a leader and as a star in the league. Yes, we are. That's what we're doing. That's what's at stake. But if he loses, not only does it solidify where his ranking is, at least for me, in terms of if he's top 10 or not, I got him 11th. But it'll put a cap, it will put a cap in a glass ceiling. He will then have to try to break through, especially if he doesn't play well. Talked about this before in another video. If we see that Jayson Tatum plays abysmal, it is going to be so much detriment to his career in terms of how we view him and what his legacy will now turn into. Not saying it's going to stay that way. What his legacy will now be viewed as a great player who can be a leader on a team, but he can't be the guy to be a champion. He just doesn't have it. Because this is another situation where he's had the better team. He's had the better roster. He has the outright squad that is better than his opponent. He's had the easiest road to a title in recent memory. He has. He's only lost twice in this playoff run. Stats are putting this team as one of the most dominant playoff run teams in history. Putting them up there with some of the best in the world. Some of the best that we have ever played in the playoffs. Some of the best teams that have ever gone on to win a championship. This team has had that same type of dominance. But we have been saying it's because they've had it easy. If it goes up against this squad and they lose, especially if everybody stays healthy, it's going to be real. It's going to be a real dilemma. Real dilemma. And we're gonna be saying, yeah, he is a easy team merchant, an injury merchant. That's what will be put on him. This is a man who can only win when everybody else is literally down on their luck. When they can't play. Didn't play against Jimmy Butler. Tyrese Halliburton got injured. Nearly about if not every single run that every single team that he beat this playoff series was hurt. Their best player, one of the best players, was gone. This is going to be if Jayson Tatum loses against a healthy Dallas Mavericks squad. We're going to really have to question what he is as a player as of right now when it comes to winning, when it comes to a champion. Because you've had and have everything at your disposal. Everything. And if you underperform and you play terribly, you go and put on another performance like you did against the Warriors, where Jaylen Brown outplayed you. We're going to be saying Jaylen Brown's the better player on this team. Jaylen Brown's the best player on this Celtics squad. He should be the number one, not Jayson Tatum. If we see again Tatum going and playing abysmal, going and playing under his ability, and Jaylen Brown again looking like the guy that is more impactful, the guy that is actually leading the squad to victory, the guy that is doing something and putting numbers on the board that translate to winning. If we see that, it's going to be incredibly dangerous for Jayson Tatum in terms of how his career trajectory is going to look. And how his legacy is going to now be talked about. And if we see Luka go and beat Boston, my gosh, we might have to start elevating him to a top 3 player in the world. We might have to. He's already been playing phenomenally. Some people saying he deserved MVP. If he goes on this run and the run that he went through in the West, beating the Timberwolves, getting out the first and second round, going up against killers, you go again and beat this Boston squad, that's going to be, oh my gosh, the legend of Luka is going to grow more and more and more. A fast track, not just a Hall of Fame status, but to an all-time great. We already know he's going to be that. But this will significantly elevate what his legacy will say about him. When he hit his prime, this man conquered everybody. When it seemed like he shouldn't have been able to. And the conversations of Luka and Kyrie as being one of the best duos in NBA history is going to get elevated as well. Yes, it will. It definitely will. I've already said that they are the best offensive duo in the NBA. Offensively, there is not a team that's better outside of maybe Steph and Clay. That's it. Even Isaiah and Joe Dumars offensively weren't as great as Kyrie and Luka individually. When you put them together, it's unstoppable. Both of them can give you 40. And on any given night, Luka can give you 30, 10, and 9. Kyrie can give you 36 and 4 on 40% shooting from 3, 50% from the field, and 90% from the line. They are the best offensive duo that I've seen in NBA history, paired together, especially now that they've hit their stride. But in terms of all time, they won a title as a duo. We got some real competition now. We got some real competition now. Yeah, we know Dumars and Isaiah Thomas, they went and they played and they won multiple chips. Absolutely. But now that conversation of whether they're the second best duo in NBA history, now that gets a lot closer. If we see Kyrie and Luka win a championship, it indeed does. There is validation for Kyrie as being the second best star on a team. This could be another conversation that we're having about Kyrie Irving, where is he indeed the best Robin that we've seen in NBA history? Now, do I think that's the case? No. But do I think this will elevate him if he goes and wins a title with LeBron and then goes and wins a title with Luka? Performing like he can perform? Oh yeah. He's gonna move himself up. I'm not saying he's Scottie Pippen. I'm not saying he's Shaq and or Kobe, depending on who you want to. Actually, at that point in time, it was Shaq who was the main guy, and Kobe was the second running mate. Not in no disrespect at all. If Shaq was the better player, Kobe was the second best player on that squad, though he was so elite when they both hit their prime. But Kobe one of the best Robins in history, and then became one of the best Batmans in history when he got his own squad. Scottie Pippen with Michael Jordan, it speaks for itself what he was able to do. Kyrie Irving, though, he will move up. How far, I'll have to think. But he will have to move up as one of the greatest Robins that we've seen in NBA history. If he wins a title. And if he wins this title against this team and puts on an incredible production, don't let him win finals MVP either. My gosh. We're talking about a whole nother animal. Again, I'm not comparing it to people like Magic and Kareem. It depends on who you deem as the Robin in that situation. I believe you. I'm not even going to get into that conversation. That's a whole other conversation. You can argue. But in terms of as a Robin, as the second best running mate, how good is he and where will he rank? It's going to be significantly elevated if he wins this title. If he wins this title. There's so much on the line for this chip. There's so much that needs to be proven for this chip individually, for each squad, each team. There's going to be a situation where we have to look and say, Tatum, if you mess up again, we are going to look at you differently. If you go and play abysmal again, we're going to look at you differently. We are. The playoffs are where you solidify what you are. You can lose. It's not about necessarily losing as much as it is how you perform, regardless of the situation. And if we see Jayson Tatum perform again terribly, like he performed in that last finals that he was in against Golden State, when again, his team was better on paper as a talent. All throughout their run, they were the better team. And you, as Tatum, did not produce and perform. Again, in my opinion, got outplayed by your own running mate in Jaylen Brown. This is going to be very bad for you. Incredibly bad for you. You are going to be looking at a situation where your legacy and how we view you right now as a player will significantly be damaged. No longer, we're not going to look at you as the face of the league anymore. If you, as a potential candidate for the face of the league, if you go and lose against Warriors if you go and lose against Dallas, but you lose in another terrible fashion with you playing horribly, we'll never talk about you as a face of the league contender again. I guarantee you I won't. I promise you I won't. I will never bring that up for you. You'll still be a great player. You'll never be in that conversation. I will bump you down even more if I see again in the playoffs you cannot produce when it comes to the finals. It's going to be a bad day. It is going to be a bad day. There's so much on the line. With Luka, if Luka underperforms again, he will at least have the ability to say the lights may have been too bright for me. He's never been in this situation before. That could be an excuse that's used, even though he won EuroLeague MVP. He's been a EuroLeague champion, and we know the ruckus crowds that are over in Europe are insane compared to the basketball crowds here in America. They literally set fire to the stadiums mid-game. The atmosphere is raucous. It is electric. It is so much more intense. So even with that, that may not be an excuse that would be valid because you played in this type of environment before, just in a different place. Maybe not this type of environment specifically, but a similar type atmosphere. And you again go and don't produce individually. Again, if you get beat, you just get beat. But if you get beat and you underperform, that's where the problem lies. That's where the problem lies. That is where the problem lies. We'll have to see whether or not that bodes true or not. But I can see this going to 6 in an incredibly hotly contested matchup. And Luka and Kyrie doing everything they can to carry the squad to victory. But they just aren't built as a whole at this point in time to be able to succeed and produce. But once next year comes around, as this team builds more and more, if they lose, they're going to be a real threat. And they will win a title one year, if not this year. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. With Luka and Kyrie, this is their first of potential many opportunities. With Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, this is the last chance that they'll have to win a title in my estimation. This will be the last chance. With Horford getting old, Tatum and Brown, at this point, if it doesn't work, they might potentially blow it up. They might blow the whole team up if we see Boston not win this year. This could be the last hurrah, your literal last stand to be able to win a championship if you're in Boston. The potential start of a beautiful story in Dallas versus the potential end to a greatest what if in Boston. It's a literal tale of two legacies. And it's going to be insane to watch. And I don't know what's going to happen. I think we'll see Boston win. They should win because they're the better team. And I'll have them winning in 6. But it's all on how Jayson Tatum performs. They have the better squad. They have the better team. But if Jayson Tatum again shows that he cannot be built for the moment, and he again underperforms as the potential, not best player on the floor, that's Luka. But in terms of best player on his team, he still gets stopped, or rather self-restrains himself. This is it for him in terms of championship aspirations. Because that team's going to be blown up. His team's going to be done. Done. I promise you. It's going to be done. This is his last chance, and it's going to be out of his hands. Because that whole team's getting reinvented. Dominated the East for multiple years, yet you still don't have a title to your name. And you've had 2 opportunities where you should have won, and you didn't. Blowing it up. I guarantee you, they will blow up that team. It'll be over. It'll be over. It'll be over and done. Promise you, if they lose. I have Boston winning, but we'll just have to wait and see. But again, with that being said, this has been another episode of The Welch Report with me, Jean-Luc Welch. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the show. Please leave a like on the video. Comment your thoughts and opinions, subscribe to the channel, and keep on sharing the show. Rate us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Every podcasting platform you can find us. We are one of the hottest shows in all the globe. I promise you we're going to get there, and it's all thanks to you and your support. So please keep on liking, keep on sharing, keep on commenting, keep on viewing, and we'll be back for another episode of much more to come in the sports world, in my opinions, on it all, hopefully to inform, inspire, and entertain the masses that come to view the show. So again, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to The Welch Report. I've been your host, Jean-Luc Welch. Peace and love. We are out of here.